What's up, everyone? Lex DeVille here with Rebel Resume, answering the question today: should you be on video for federal interviews? Specifically, talking about those federal video interviews, the ones that are on Microsoft Teams that you get invited to, and then you have an option usually whether or not you want to go on camera whenever you do the interview, or if you want to just be audio only. So, we're going to talk about that today. Before we get into that, make sure you like this video. It really helps the channel grow. Even though we're really small right now, we will get bigger. And make sure you subscribe if you want more federal hiring videos and click the notification bell so you never miss a video. All right, getting back to it, should you be on camera for these federal interviews? A lot of people have really strong opinions about this. I have some pretty strong opinions myself, and I think the answer really depends on your personal situation. So I'm going to start with my personal situation, and that's how I make my decision, and then kind of guide maybe your personal situation and how you might make that decision. I hope that makes sense. All right, so my situation, uh, as far as I can tell by looking at myself in this video, my lighting looks pretty good. My camera quality looks pretty good. My microphone sound, I think, is on point, and my background stuff is taken care of. Why does this all matter? It matters because whenever I show up on camera, when I show up on video, well, let's backtrack and talk a little bit of psychology. Whenever you see someone, the first time you see someone, this is your first impression. About 3 seconds is all it takes for you to form an impression of that person. So that is to form a mental snapshot of who that person is. So I come on here and you see me looking like this, and snap, 3 seconds later, you've got that snapshot of me. What does that snapshot say? It says, well, you've got some of these colors of blue. Those are kind of calming colors, right? You've got me right now. I'm in a relaxed state, but I dress up a little more for federal interviews. But you can tell that I'm physically fit. You can tell that I've got a nice smile. At least I think that I do. Maybe you don't think that, but you can tell that I've got degrees in the background. That's credibility. All of this is creating a sense of credibility. I'm someone who's fit. I've got degrees. I've got a nice setup. I'm credible. That's what we're building toward: credibility and competency, because that matters in an interview. And that is part of what the interviewers are trying to draw out of you. So I am pretty comfortable being on camera, and therefore, I want to be on camera whenever possible because it gives me an opportunity to influence the person behind the screen. Yes, they have to rate you as unbiasedly as possible, but every action that humans take has an inherent bias built into it because we make these snap judgments, and then those snap judgments filter into how we make decisions about things, how we rate people, how we think about them. So maybe even if I'm going into an interview and on the interview they say, hey, you need to shut your camera off. If they told me that, that's fine. But within those 3 seconds that it took them to get that sentence out, I've already made some kind of impression that is helping in their decision of whether or not they like me. Now, if you don't show up well on a camera, that might be a different story. And I wanted to talk about that too, because I don't want to ignore the fact that not everyone is going to be a fit for camera, uh, for being on camera. If you have terrible lighting, it's going to affect the quality of your video. It's going to affect how it looks to the other people. And it could even affect the speed and your frame rates and whether or not you get stuck and frozen in place. Those are all factors that you have to consider that you don't really have to think about with audio only. Speaking of audio, do you have a good microphone? If you're just using your phone, it might be good enough. It probably is good enough. If you're using a webcam, that could be a different story. I'm using a webcam. I always do it on a laptop setup. It just gives me a little more control over the system. What is the quality of your camera? Do you have an old camera? Is it looking kind of shoddy? Some other considerations: what is in your background? I've chosen specific colors. I've chosen to put specific things on the wall. Now, some of the other stuff is actually related to some music stuff that I do, like playing the piano. But it actually helps whenever we go into interviews, federal interviews, because the interviewers see it and they always make comments about it. They say stuff like, "You look like you've got a nice podcast setup," or they say, "Your room looks really interesting. Are you a musician?" And then that's a talking point. So if they bring that up, I have a talking point now, and we're starting to build rapport. But if your background, like many backgrounds that I've seen, is full of a bunch of clothes on the floor, your bed is in the background and it's not made up, there's a bunch of trash scattered about, you've got your kitchen sink and it's got stuff all over it, that's a huge problem because it says something about you. There's a mantra that goes, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And a lot of people take that to heart. I'm like spitting all over the place tonight. I hope you guys can't see this. That's how I do one thing. Maybe I spit all the time. I don't know. If your background is a big mess, or if you're not showing up presenting well, like Did you even dress up for this interview? Just because it's in your home doesn't mean you can't dress up. We'll talk about that another time. If you don't present well on camera, then maybe don't be on camera. Also, if you get super nervous whenever you go into these interviews, maybe it's a good idea to stay off camera for the first few interviews that you get, because when you're off camera, when you're just audio only, you have a lot more freedom to think and feel and not have the pressure of being on camera. You can look down at notes, you can have different thought processes or just different key points written down that you can access more easily than if you have to think about your body language when you're on camera. Speaking of body language, that's another factor that has to be accounted for. Am I smiling? Am I smiling enough? Where am I looking? I've seen people on the Reddit USA Jobs uh, that forum who have said that when you're on camera, you should be looking at the camera, remembering to look at the camera so you're making eye contact with the interviewers. It's like you're making eye contact with them. That's not where I have to look. My webcam is up here. And so if I'm looking at the camera, this is me looking at the camera. Does it look like I'm looking you in the eye? Mm-mm. No, you need to practice this stuff, because I'm looking you in the eyes more right now, but I'm looking at myself on the screen. So I'm looking into my own eyes on the screen, which is below my camera. And you have to account for that. I'm using certain types of body language. I'm using open palms because that's saying, hey, I'm a nice guy. I'm friendly. I'm not here to harm anybody. I'm not defensive. I'm not pointing stuff out. These are things you have to think about. There are additional factors that come into play when you're on camera. So if you're not particularly strong on camera, maybe stay off. If your background is a mess, if you are a mess, if you're not willing to account for those things, if you're not willing to invest in some equipment, you could get a nice 1080p camera for under $100. You can get a desk lamp, which is what I use, and then I've got a ring lamp over here. I don't remember how much that was, under $100, but for under, like, let's say $200, you can have a setup that's nice enough to impress most people on a video interview. Now, there's all those other factors that come into play that you have to account for. So keep those in mind. But it's not that hard to get your setup. A fresh coat of paint, slap some certificates on the wall or whatever you've got, or maybe a nice picture back there, or even a picture of like a celebrity or something, borrowed credibility from the celebrity, a picture of the president, a picture of the American flag. I don't know. Depends on what kind of job you're applying for. If you're not willing to do those things and account for those things, or if you just feel more comfortable on audio, then maybe that's your strong point. Maybe just do audio. I like to be on camera whenever possible because I like to take every opportunity to influence people in my direction if there is an opportunity to do that. And I think that I'm okay at that. Those are my thoughts on this. Let me know your thoughts in a comment down below. What do you think are the advantages and disadvantages of being on camera? Would you do it? And would you do it if you had the option not to do it? I've had interviews go both ways where it's the panel is not on they're not on video, and I've had them where the panel is on video. Something to think about though with video, if you are willing to get on camera, is that if the panel members do not get on camera, now we're tapping into something really deeply subconscious. We're tapping into their self-talk. And I know this because I have been in positions where I've gotten on calls that I did not think were going to be video calls, but the other person showed up on video. And I realized that because I was not on video, I felt a certain way. I felt, what is the word I'm looking for? I felt inferior somehow, or I felt like I wasn't being respectful by not showing up on camera. So if you go on enough calls, you will find that people acknowledge that you are on camera. So I do this uh, not just for the purpose of interviewing federally, but with like my copywriting clients outside of here. I meet them on camera too. And I always show up on camera. When they don't, the thing they say to me is, oh, yeah, I should be on camera too. They always say that. And then a few seconds later, they'll put their camera on if they can. If you show up on camera and the panel does not show up on camera, they're probably not going to say anything about it. But this is one little area where you can get some power back in this interview, because when you show up on camera, they're thinking to themselves, wow, this person showed up on camera. They're a legit professional. They have a professional setup and they showed up on camera, and I'm not even willing to do that. It's just a little mental thing. It's a mental trick, but it's part of the process of getting hired. And if you want to have every little advantage, it's worth considering. Those are my thoughts on this. Let me know your thoughts in a comment down below. Remember to like and subscribe if you liked anything in this video, and ask me any questions. I'm here for you. Swing by Rebel Resume if you want me to write your resume, or if you want any kind of like federal career coaching, interview prep, interview prep coaching. We can do like mock interviews and things like that. That's all I've got for this video. I'm Lex DeVille. I'll see you next time.